welcome back. So the past few days I've just been kind of having some fun cruising YouTube, checking out a whole bunch of different players. I haven't really done this in a long time. I wanted to kind of see what everyone was up to, all the different players. I watched tons of videos by different players, and it's just amazing the technique people have nowadays. It seems like everyone can shred. You know, back in the 80s, growing up in the 80s, there was a handful of guys that really had that technique that we really looked up to. Now it seems like, you know, it's very common to hear people playing really fast notes, clean. It's amazing how far we've come. But one thing I noticed watching all these players play, even though there's a million guys that can shred now, really one thing I noticed that there really is a handful of guys that really have control of their phrasing, not just play fast. For me personally, I love technique. You know, I do a lot of shred guitar in the 80s, cover the whole genre. I just love it. But it's hard for me to listen to a guitar player if there's not musical ideas and rhythmic phrases happening. To me, you can't have shred without the phrasing. You need the phrasing to have the shred. It's just so important. In the end, the phrasing is really the most important thing. When I listen to my old favorites, I can really hear that phrasing element in their playing. And if you look at players like Yngwie, he started out with Ritchie Blackmore and all those great phrasers. I mean, Blackmore has some of the best phrasing around. You know, Tony Macalpine, Vinnie Moore, all these guys came up in an era where they were playing really cool stuff before they learned their technique, or while they're developing their technique. They didn't start out with the speed. They had that bass, that element of rhythm and control in their playing. And you can really hear that in the early shredders. They were so musical because of that. And you could hear it kind of, to me, as the decade went on, when you had players that were starting out with more of the shred kind of technique, there was a difference in the phrasing. And I think even to this day, you can kind of hear that in a lot of players. And I think that element of rhythm and soul and everything everyone talks about is really important. But it really just boils down to having control of the beat and knowing where to leave the space and not being in a hurry all the time with your playing. And then when you do burst into some fast stuff, it just has more meaning and it has purpose, I think. You can also look as a fast passage kind of being a color, maybe like one note almost, when you're playing a group of notes together. I've heard Holdsworth talk about this in the past when I read some of his interviews. And it really made a lot of sense to me. So there's a lot of different ways to approach this. And to me, it has nothing to do with playing slow or playing fast. It's telling a story. If you look at all the amazing guitar players out there, really the guys that really resonate with a large audience, even beyond guitar players, are the guys that can tell a story on their guitar. And what they all have in common is that incredible ability to phrase, to really be inside each note rhythmically and melodically and really tell a story. I think that storytelling is really the most important thing you can have as a soloist, because in the end, that's what it's about. You know, you want to take the listener on a journey. If I look at all the amazing players I grew up on, you know, from Allan Holdsworth, Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, to Michael Schenker, Ritchie Blackmore, to Yngwie, to Vinnie Moore, to Tony Macalpine, to Eric Johnson, Mike Stern, all these guys were huge for me. One thing they have in common is they all can really phrase, and they're all unique in their phrasing and play totally different. Allan Meola, John McLaughlin. These players had amazing technique, incredible technique. One thing they had was that ability to really phrase and tell a story with their guitar. And it's really hard to get if you don't have it. You know, and it's really crazy watching all these videos of these guitar players just playing all this amazing stuff. You know, as my brain was getting boggled watching this. But then when they end their notes, or they bend or whatever, you can kind of hear that once they got through what they practiced, it was kind of into the next thing they practiced, but there wasn't that bridge of storytelling. So I thought it'd be fun today to really talk about how I approach it. And really, if you are struggling with your phrasing, which really, in the end, it boils down to having great rhythm and having control of that quarter note or whatever beat you're playing over, and the ability to play on the beat or in the cracks of the beat. For me, great phrasing kind of comes when you're not really starting and ending on the beat every second. It's when you're free and you can start anywhere on the beat and anywhere on the beat, in the cracks of the beat, whatever, and have one phrase start and one phrase end in a really cool spot. And where you leave the space is really super crucial also. That space allows the listener to reset and kind of understand what you're saying. It's kind of like speaking. I might be speaking fast here, but if you just speak really fast, you're never really going to pick up what anyone's saying. So you want to have those dynamics and that ability to tell a story to get your point across. The way I developed my ability to phrase was just tapping my foot. Once I started tapping my foot and really feeling that pulse and having control of that pulse, no matter what I played up here, I was totally in the pocket, even though I might be playing all around the beat, never landing on the downbeat or pushing and pulling slightly. My foot is just grooving that quarter note right in the pocket, right on the beat, not before, not behind, just right in the beat, right in the pocket. And then I'm phrasing around it, allowing me to create all that music. And Allan Meola talks about this a lot. And it's super important to have control of your playing. For me, telling a story really, I was able to do that when I really started to get control of the time. Once I started tapping my foot and I really felt the pulse, and my foot never varies from that pulse. I just feel that pulse and I'm phrasing all this stuff around it, but my foot's grooving. I'm not getting out of beat at all, out of sync with the time. And having that control of the pulse down here allows me to play all the cool stuff on top, kind of tap dance around the beat or play on the beat. And that's a lot harder to do than it sounds. I was watching a couple well-known players, I won't mention their names, and they were tapping their foot when they played rhythm, and as soon as they start to play fast, their foot would stop tapping. And that told me that they weren't feeling the pulse there, they were just kind of running through the motions with their hands, stuff that they have practiced. And their phrasing kind of sounded like it, you know. Me personally, I don't like that, starting everything on one, you know, ending a phrase and starting on one again, or starting on the downbeat and ending on the downbeat every time. That kind of drives me crazy. And when I hear players do that, I mean, it's okay in some, nothing wrong with playing on the downbeat. But for me personally, the fun is kind of mixing up between that downbeat and doing the upbeat and all around the cracks of the beat. So that is really, for me, the key. Feeling that pulse in the leg, my foot, tapping my heel, my foot, whatever, and just doing all this stuff on top. And Allan Meola, the great late Emily Remler, talked about this. And it's so important. It's really the most important thing you can do. And then once you start to get control of that phrasing, of that beat, you can really start to tell a story with your guitar. And it's so much fun. And it helps your speed playing also, because you're not in a hurry. Because if you're playing faster lines, you want to be relaxed. And if you're feeling that quarter note, you can start right on the downbeat or wherever you want to start, but you're feeling that pulse and you can be relaxed and go into it. You don't feel like you have to tense up because you're just playing a phrase. And it's really amazing how important that is. For me, I kind of break things down like I talk about in 3 different speeds. I have the slow speed, the medium speed, and the fast speed. And then I just practice my phrasing in and out between those kind of 3 speeds, trying to end on the beat or play on the off beat or whatever, the cracks of the beat. And when I practice, that's kind of what I practice, is my phrasing. And my technique just kind of developed along with that. It's really cool. That's what it's all about. It's kind of expressing yourself and having that ability to just play whatever you want and weave in and out and tell stories, to me, what it's all about. So I thought I would just come on today and talk a little about the importance of phrasing. It's not a glamorous subject, but to me it's really overlooked. And I'm going to go into some lessons where I kind of break it down in the future. But thanks a lot for joining me. If you like this, please like and subscribe. And thanks a lot for watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you.